I really enjoyed Honkai Star Rail 3.0 version. As a matter of fact, it reignited my interest in the game again. And this is after, for the most part, not so interesting 2.4 and 2.5 versions of the game, absolutely brain-melting schizophrenia that 2.6 was, except Rappa flashback and reveal, and also absolute nothingness that 2.7 presented itself as. But let's start from the proper introduction. You can call me Proxy, and this is my first ever review, or maybe it's better to be called impressions about the game overall. I want to give you a quick rundown about myself first, because I think context is important before watching the video. You know, to understand what a person likes in games and their experience with said games. And I, myself, is very passionate, which might include bursts of rage, about video games in general. I don't use Twitter, I don't use Reddit, obviously no Instagram or social media of similar kind. Only popular place I visit often throughout years is YouTube. In fact, I learn English thanks to that, and yeah, English is not my first language, so I apologize in advance if I stumble somewhere and use words that are not quite accurate. What is most important is that you can understand where I'm coming from. I have been playing games for almost as long as I can remember, starting with PlayStation 1. I tried many different genres, and my taste has changed many times, until eventually I feel comfortable with what I choose to play now. I tend to forgive games for shortcomings, their negative aspects, as long as positives outweigh them, obviously. I don't need my games to always be using Unreal Engine, insert a current number here, and or other high-end things to enjoy my entertainment. All I personally want from my game is fun. And fun comes in different ways. Thrilling anxiety of the horror games can be fun, uncovering long lost secrets of the forgotten place can be fun, piecing together evidence and masking the killer can be fun, doing puzzles, fighting hard to reach treasure chests, dating characters, bashing demons' skulls so hard their eyes will. Alright, let's not go over there. All these aspects I mentioned can be fun as long as they're done well and have a good balance. I enjoy my time with first person shooters like Call of Duty and Doom, loved visual novel games like Danganronpa or Zero Escape. I played the JRPGs like Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, hack and slash like God of War and Devil May Cry, and I am a huge fan of horror games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, and there's just so many more examples, some well known, some not. And here now we have Honkai Star Rail. I have started playing Star Rail since its release from 1.0 version up until now, and at the same time I was still playing Genshin Impact 2, also since 1.0. And so happened that Star Rail killed my desire to play Genshin, with all the quality of life that even the launch version of the game bombarded me with. The deal was set. And just before the release of Fontaine 4.0, I dropped Genshin Impact and have been clean ever since. Right now I'm constantly playing and keeping up with Star Rail and also Zenless Zone Zero. I don't have 10 other gacha games that I am playing on the side, God forbid. I cannot fathom the unfortunate souls whose brains are most likely fried, but by now, with all the gacha games they consume. On the contrary, I prefer to play, so to speak, regular games while on a break from newly released updates from Hoyo. And when it comes to my experience of Star Rail, I can sum it up as solid, with occasional small and not so small hiccups. I enjoy sci fi setting more by a simple fact of it being refreshing from all the fantasy bullshit of the genre is filled with, plus sci fi settings have potential to be more creative within itself. It's not just one continent that consists of green forests, yellow forests, oases, and underwater forest with a sprinkle of ancient ruins here and there in each zone. Though, don't get me wrong, I'm fine with it, as long as the game delivers good content. I am satisfied with the pace of the game content, not writing. I should mention it. It's less time consuming than most gachas, and devs are quite consistent in delivering big simulated universe game modes, about like 3 to 4 versions, like Swarm Disaster, Golden Gear, and now Divergent Universe. And we have a steady rotation of endgame modes like Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, and Apocalyptic Shadow. Hate this one, by the way. Beside that, there is always limited and not events, which objectively are just time killers and a means to farm more pools for characters. There is some fun to have in them, but in my opinion, most of them are boring. And then we have occasional quality of life changes here and there, new characters to try every update, and new locations to explore with their own collectibles, quests, and new interactive objects. So, overall, yeah, I can sum it up as a nice deal for a sort of life service single player RPG. That one game that I can play for a week and then ignore it for months until the next update comes out. Now, I think we finally reached the whale in the room, and this is the story element of the game, which also includes mentioning other games. Short story is not satisfied with delivery and pacing in each MiHoYo game, with occasional highlights. And those highlights are so fucking bright and beautiful that it really makes me question how does workload is spread within the development team, and which writer was responsible for which part of this story. I'm sure about only one thing. There's definitely a poor guy or girl who is tasked with writing about 80 collectible notes with fluff information about local stock inflation, low description, cooking tidbits, anecdotes, and other stuff that no sane player will ever read. And they are taxed to do this for every update, no less. Anyway, for reference sake and only mentioning the main storyline, I'll tell you my kinda short impression of each one. Keep in mind that I've played each update as it was released, so my memory might betray me. The Bellabog story was good, in my opinion. It's a nice first chapter of the adventure, interesting world, plot had a good beginning, middle, and the end, with a sense of security slowly descending into unease, villains reveal, gathering forces, unveiling the hidden story of the world, and finally pushing back and defeating the baddie in an epic showdown. It was simple, straight to the point. But that said, the Bellabog story only works because it was the first one. Release it today, and I'm pretty sure the reception of it would have been mild, with dissatisfaction of how little there was. Shanzhou Lofu, on the other hand, I honestly lack the words to properly describe it. I'd say it was the most boring story. The boring, in fact, that I cannot even remember the plot. In my mind, it was remembered as a mess of different scenes. Answering the distress call, chasing Kafka, interrogating Kafka to no result, then helping investigating the abundance cult, revealing the traitor, and then having a neck snapping experience, and finally beating yet another unplayable Big Booba Mademoiselle. And all that also smashed together with Dan Han POV and most just forgettable story threads that won't be answered for years. Entirety of Lo Fu felt like a filler dream, chaotically doing random stuff that had little to no consequences. And then we arrived at Penacony. And oh boy, how excited it was, really, even before the release. The hype around this strange space prison transformed into a hotel where you can enter the dream world inspired by Las Vegas. Hard not to be excited, and no wonder. A refreshing setting and so many opportunities, so many new characters. My final verdict for the entire Penacony storyline, though, was in a way 50-50, and an even roller coaster. It had a memorable introduction to the world, a new set of important characters and mysteries, but then you had so many mandatory objectives like visiting shops, babysitting, having fever inducing gags, taking care of local Mickey Mouse chores, and just so much stuff that has no place being in the main story. As a side content, it is all very welcomed. But when it gets in the way of the main plot, it just kills the pace and the entire interesting to keep playing. Characters too come and go with no particular sense of being important to the story. They appear, drop some vague bullshit like all knowing smart asses they are, then dip off and only appear when the story needs it. Story itself felt like it was confusing for the sole role to be confusing. Even some of my friends agree when we discuss it. They absolutely don't understand what was going on in the Penacony. At least I'm in a better position. It really felt like writers wanted to impress the players with an intricate and complex story, mysterious characters with ulterior motives, but in the end, all of it there was just to look grand on the surface, in your face, with all its spectacle and distracting flashes, but pointless. I will highlight that there is good parts. Most interesting of them were, in particular, a story of Aventurine, Mikhail, and Sunday. Other than that, strong aspects of the Pentagon were solely the unique design, highly refreshing setting, new small and big additions to gameplay, switch of story POV, and some other adjustments. That aside, I think it's time for me to talk a little bit about Amphorius, my 3.0 experience. Probably the toughest one to go due to different reasons. First of all, I want to avoid spoilers as much as possible since the update has been released only 3 weeks prior to this recording. But on the other hand, trust me, I am trembling in excitement to talk about all the little details of Amphorius' story up to this point. Hopefully, I'll find a good balance, but you have been warned. Additionally, keep in mind that this is only the first update of many. The story is not yet finished, and we are waiting for 3.1, up to possibly 3.3, yet to be released. Starting from a bad foot. The lack of English voice acting for Dan Han and Himiko is definitely annoying, but oh well, that's not the end of the world. Prior to release, I was hyped, but kept my expectation low, since Penacony story didn't really satisfy me completely, and versions from 2.4 to 2.7 were, for the lack of better term, a mistake. Um, Happy to declare that I had a blast with this one though, almost all the way through the Amphorius. First things that comes to mind is the whiplash I had compared to Penacony, while, like I said, Penacony was chaotic, in your face with characters popping in and out, mysteries shoved in your face, and all that busy, loud, and crazy world around you. Amphorius felt like a complete opposite of it, drastically contrasting the approach. Starting from the slow beginning when our definitely not annoying companion cannot accompany us due to feeling unwell. Thankfully, it has a drastic story implications. Us arriving to a new destination, only to be attacked by unknown forces and being stranded on literally unknown world without any way to communicate with Astro Express and return back. Story presents itself carefully, slowly, but always moving forward, from being lost and stranded to meeting new people, learning local customs, about conflicts within groups, and the struggle between people of this world, their heroes against the gods, now Mad Titans, and the mysterious Black Tide. What I like the most about the story is how straightforward it was, in fact. Simplistic even, but only on the surface. You are just an adventure from beyond the sky stuck on this world and pulled it to someone else's conflict, with not much choice but to help local champions defeat big bad titans. And why not, right? It seems like a right thing to do, and you surely love playing a hero, aren't you? Plus, doesn't this plot feel eerily familiar already? I hope you already noticed where I'm going with this. Even by 3.0 version, Amphoria's story presents itself as a classic hero epic, yet there is a constant feeling as if something is off. Something with this place, with these people, these heroes, and the entire quest of defeating Mad Titans is not quite right. Maybe it's just my imagination, of course, where Penacony was throwing every crazy plot detail in your face and, in the end, leaving you with only a few to chew on. Amphorius offers a simple approach, yet giving more curious players rewards from different additional conversations, observation points, and more lore from side notes. For the first time in a very long time, I was really invested in learning more about Titans of Amphorius, who they are, what they represent, how they connect to each other, literally remembering things, learning them, not seeing more subtle details that can come to play in the future. And then there's the next part that I really loved is character interaction. From the initial trailer, all I could say is that, yeah, some of them are pretty definitely cool, but I don't know if I should expect much from them. But what the story did right is to give each character equal amount of screen time. If my complaint about Penaconian, especially 2.0, was the lack of characters in the story, here in Amphorius, you have the opportunity to join everyone in different scenarios and in different parties. It can be Finon and Triby first, who are gonna act very friendly towards you and seemingly carefree. Then you'll be left alone with Aglaya, eventually learning about the complex hierarchy and laws of this world. Perhaps you notice some conflict between heroes too. Getting to know each character more by observing their demeanor in different situations, be it competition between noble Finon and fiery Mayday, or gentle Castorius being a voice of reason when Finon shows a side of anxiety. While leaving some characters behind, you learn more while traveling in unexpected places with one of the other heroes, or switching, for example, point of view with Aglaya, along with her most trustworthy ally, learning more about unease in a city and a conflict of interest in a console. There are sightseeing episodes in absolutely beautiful locations, but they're short, providing more context to the world and returning you to the main path sooner or later. A lot of exploration can be done almost at any time you want, distracting you from main plot or leaving it for later. During the main plot, you can expect a very familiar pace, a lot of talking, then some exploration, fights several bosses with new types of puzzles and very interesting collectible items exclusive to for Amphorius, which might be more than meets the eye, depending on you personally. I definitely had fun with some of them, for example, Hendo Zagreus. But anyway, now to negatives. For the most part, the majority of it is not exclusive to Amphorius. It is the same stuff that Star Rail and other horror games are guilty of. Excessive amount of dialogue where useful information ranges between 50 to negative 100, stiff and barely moving characters standing in half circle. I'm not really bothered by this, since the game presents itself as sort of turn-based RPG, and I'm very used to those. But I understand the people's need for characters to do, like, I don't know, Fortnite dances while talking, whatever. Black screens with white text are still present, and they are as annoying as ever. But what annoys me even more is that you have no control over them. You have long ass sentences that disappear in 3 seconds, and yet a short one stays on the screen for good 20 instead, and then swapped to another one. Most stuff like this could have been fixed with a dialogue skip button, which we have been asking since 2020 or something? I don't, and just Yeah, and don't give me that Zelda Zone Zero bullshit. I actually play the game, and it seems like no one else does. Skip button is ZZZ, available only during animated dialogue scenes and the comic book sections. I just finished 1.5 story about the most straight woman in the entire game, Astrayao, and I can confirm that you spend less time listening to the story where skip button is available, while inside content, every event, and all unvoiced scenes, you're forced to mash dialogue button like everywhere else without means to skip anything. Anyway, back to Star Rail. The only additional thing I can think about, that I can complain about, is difficulty. Combat against any regular enemy in the overworld is laughably easy, at the point that you just start ignoring every fight. And same goes to puzzles, sadly. Most of the puzzles are some insulting level of difficulty, probably challenging to toddlers only. But then again, this might vary from person to person. I've seen someone actually having a problem with the simplest one, and then the final complaint is gonna be one quest from main story. It is related to the Herta. No spoilers, but it was a waste of time in my opinion, with barely nothing going on and an empty cliffhanger. Uh, but in the end, all things considered, 3.0 probably is my most favorite update yet. Or at least it did reignite my desire to play the game. It actually made me stop in my tracks so many times and start listening and reading, really getting into the story and its hidden curiosities. Now we just need to wait until the rest of it can come out, and who knows? It all can go to shit. They might ruin everything and fall face in dirt with every Chekhov's gun strapped onto themselves, but you never know until you see it. I think this is all I wanted to say, though I definitely might have forgotten something. So feel free to help me out in the comments. I am highly excited for the next update and continuation of Euphoria's storyline. I need more Titan lore, I want to meet Cypher, and even more so, for those of you who are as curious as me, very adventurous types, I'm really looking forward to meeting Chrysos Hairs, who are the successors of Low Titan and Sky Titan. Just damn. This brings me back to Bleach and Naruto kind of days when you have these very interesting factions of protagonists and antagonists with their own motives, different personalities, levels of power, and some surprising reveals. It just, by itself, it's simple but it works. It's very entertaining. But anyway, maybe I'll make another video if there's gonna be a reason and enough content to talk about, in even more details than here. I'm freshly new to creating content, especially on YouTube. Right now, I'm mostly streaming on Twitch. Proxy Virus Official, by the way, check me out. And consistently uploading recordings every day here on this channel, which includes my full 3.0 playthrough, unedited. And it's all on one, it's about 30 hours in total, and final parts are coming on YouTube channel soon. Anyway, if you actually listen to me rambling till this moment, I really appreciate it. And stay positive. Until then, bye bye.